Hey there everybody, it's Betsy from Story Drawing Skills, and I saw this video about You Should Make a Webcomic by Super Death Show about making webcomics, so I decided to make a webcomic, 100 panels of webcomic from scratch in 6 months. At the time this video is recorded, there are 68 days left and still 89 panels left to go, but I will persevere. This is episode number 16, where I'm going to be continuing the page that I left off with last week. I'm starting off by drawing all of these rock spiders being tumbled around by the water. I apologize that I cannot raise my voice right now. My family has actually already gone to sleep as I work on this late into the night. And so I'm going to try to enunciate, but also keep my voice a little hushed so that I don't wake them up. So yeah, drawing a million rock spiders here. This is the page, or panel I should say, where Clarice is releasing the water since she finished reciting her spell, or, action words, whatever you call them, on the previous panel, on the previous page. So now I'm drawing all these little rock spiders getting tumbled around, and I started off with the rock spiders in particular because I felt kind of rusty, like I was just going in cold, and I wanted to start off with something and warm up with like the least important shapes when it came to like accuracy. Like, I had a lot of trouble drawing the water also, but I knew if I started with the characters being human characters, I was going to notice every little mistake that I made, and didn't want to have to start out like that. So to warm up, I just started with all of the little rock spiders and then went on to the water, which had more, free-flowing shapes, and I didn't have to worry quite as much with things like anatomy or perspective and stuff like that. And I found it really helped, because normally I would, do a warm-up drawing, like a totally separate warm-up drawing. But since I didn't have time for that, here's a quick way, or a quick tip on how to get around that. All you have to do is start with something in the panel that kind of doesn't matter. Other things might be like trees in the background, or, grass. Just things that have more organic shapes and less to worry about. This water was not completely to my liking. Some parts it kind of looks like hair, and other parts it kind of just looks goopy. Like, it doesn't quite look like water to me, but when you're out of time, you don't have time to nitpick on those kind of things, so I just kept going onward, forward, move forward. That's kind of been my mantra this last week, is just keep going, because as you can tell, I'm falling further and further behind. And it's not actually that I'm falling behind so much, but like I don't change the numbers on the intro unless I actually have the panels posted. So by the end of this video, I'm pretty much, 12 more panels along. No, wait, not 12. 7? I think 7. 7 more panels along, but I didn't want to change the intro until I had actually gotten these posted and like in the can. Because unfortunately I did not get to finished on these panels, but I got pretty close, so that was good. I don't want people to forget that there was smoke around in the background, because as some of you know, that is an important story element later, so I need to just quietly remind the audience over and over that yeah, there are still rocks that emit some kind of mysterious gas. Working on Clarice. And it was kind of funny how in the sketch I was like one pass and I was just like, oh yes, perfect, that's her face. And then when it came to finalizing lines, like always, I had all kinds of troubles. Oh, these hands, gosh. I must have redone them like 7, 8, 10 times, I don't know. It was her other hand that I didn't want to make the poses exactly the same with both of her hands, but then her fingers were also looking very old and gnarly, and her first hand looked so youthful and smooth. Then I noticed that her elbow was really wonky, so I had to readjust that, and then noticed that her other hand was probably sticking out too far. And it might even just be easier for me to draw if I flipped it around the other way, so that's what I did. And as soon as I flipped the art, I could tell right away that her hand was too far forward, and it was surprisingly much easier to draw flipped. So maybe I can just only draw hands when they're on the right, I don't know. And doodled in the water while I was here. I really liked how this little bit of water came out. It's just like nice and swirly and graceful. And while I was in this flipped position, I started off Socorro, and I was like, oh wait, I'm flipped, and then flipped it back. Still not entirely sure how her shoulder armor works, so I've been just kind of fudging it, and hoping that nobody points it out. This other arm, too, her left arm, was so difficult. I don't know why. It's like I don't know. It was just a bad moment of drawing. So I redid it quite a few times. Had to switch my music to Big Bang to give me like a mood boost, a morale boost. And put in a couple of the mountainy cliffside and smoke stuff in the back, again, so that the audience remembers. Didn't really like how this panel was composed, so I started repositioning the underdrawing first before I went in with the final lines. And again, started with Socorro because I realized that this is the first time that we see Socorro from the back, and I haven't actually ever drawn her from the back, and I thought maybe she'd have some kind of emblem on her back, but nothing that looked like a bullseye like it does now, because that would be very inviting to any enemies or monsters or whatever. So just said that I'd put some kind of logo. Like, I know there's going to be some sort of guild or like organization or faction for each of their different types of magic. So they should have some kind of emblem, but I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be yet, so I just left it there for now and went on doing the lines that I kind of knew what I was doing. I noticed in earlier panels, I don't know if I should point it out now, but Kess's face will change from being kind of round and youthful looking, and sometimes it's long. And it's, again, one of those things that I wish I could go back and make her face more consistent through the panels, but you can't. You just have to keep going forward. I probably set myself up for a mess here when I did these 3 panels of Socorro, all side by side. I mean, this is basically like a turnaround, and I hate turnarounds, like more than anything. I hate turnarounds. And yet, here we go in this comic, setting one up. Not entirely sure why I thought it was really needed here. But again, I wanted her to look around, and I guess this was the best way to have her look around, is to have 3 different poses. But now I'm thinking I might even shift them back to the diagonal format that I had earlier, because when they are side by side like this, you can just tell every little mistake, every little proportion error. I mean, for a long time in drawing these 3, there was just things about her face bugging me. I wasn't sure if she's like shrinking in that last panel, so I had to measure it, and even though the lines were lining up, it looked like she was shorter in that last panel. I can't figure out why. So just did my best to try to draw her somewhat accurately in all 3 panels. The reference picture on the right there is one that I drew earlier in the week because I just felt like I needed sort of an official, clean line version to refer to. I've been referring to the concept art a lot, and everybody knows that my concept art is not that clean, so it was not the most helpful when I was trying to figure out, like the inconsistencies in her face and stuff like that. So I tried to do a model sheet there, but I only got as far as this 3/4 full body shot, and I haven't actually done her head angles, and I haven't done any of the other sort of, what do you call them, like necessities, I guess, for drawing a character on model in different views. You probably saw that I copied and pasted her body and are thinking like, wow, Betsy's a hack. Sometimes, you know, you just gotta do what you gotta do to get this done. And since I was super running out of time, I'm just like, I just gotta copy and paste this body. And it's kind of ironic because whenever I see multiple panels like this by another artist, one of the first things I do is check like the line work and try to see if they just copied and pasted or not. And I'm always so relieved and so happy when they haven't copied and pasted, and yet here I am copying and pasting. So I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I think I'm going to respect that sometimes your deadline just forces you to do things that you would rather not do. And this is, you know, going to be a painful reminder. Every time I see these 3 panels, I'm going to think, oh man, that's the one I copied and pasted because I didn't give myself enough time to do it properly. Her face was still bugging me. Trying to figure out why she looks so different in that last panel. And then it was my turn to make dinner, so my drawing session was interrupted, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to finish this week, but I was going to try my darndest. So I came back even after dinner. What? Shocks. Usually after dinner I am done. Like, it's time for Korean dramas and Running Man and just fun times and then go to sleep. But no, I came back and knew I had to at least get all of the line art and the flat colors done for these panels, or else I'm just like never going to catch up. So here we are, going back, putting in all the rocks. And like this, by this time I didn't even care. Like most of the time when I'm drawing comics, I will be so careful to make sure that the backgrounds match up as if, you know, we're a real filming location. And try to make sure that, you know, if there's a certain rock formation or a certain you know, dip in the landscape, that it will, you know, be consistently in the same spot. But by the time I was doing this, I was just like, whatever, just get it done, get it down. I just had no other choice. Kes is deactivating her rabbit magic finally, so her ears are starting to fade away. Aw, I know some of you were like, but the rabbit ears were great. And here we go, starting with flats. Usually I put all of the character flats on the same layer, but for some reason, something in my gut was telling me that I should put the rock spiders on their own layer, so I did. And just went around and flat colored them all in gray. I wasn't entirely sure on some of these shapes where they're like half underwater or in the water if I should do those gray or not, but I ended up doing them all gray, and then I can always soften it up later if I have to. Putting in the rock color in the back, and then going into the smoke for a bit there, but it wasn't really working, so I thought I'd just do that in Photoshop instead. And then just go to the water, because the water is obviously a huge part of this panel. So I went ahead and just flatted it out all in blue. All in blue, yeah. And then it wasn't until I had almost outlined that entire shape that I realized, oh wait, there's going to be water back there. Big splash over there, curly water over there. And once I kind of got that all done, then I could just highlight everything and fill it in with a paint bucket, thank goodness. I wanted some of the water effect to go over the rocks, but I couldn't figure out how to do it in Fire Alpaca. So that's going to have to wait until Photoshop. I had no idea what kind of color treatment to do for this water. Since the characters are generally cel shaded, I thought I should stick to fairly harsh colors, but the water was just looking so fake and simple and blah. So I tried to add in some of the different colors for like the sea foam stuff, you know, the white water. And then trying to blend it in was a nightmare. And it just looks so bad when I was doing it. And, you know, when you don't have time, you just gotta make it work. So I just kind of blended things back and forth. And then on to characters. I have since learned from, you know, previous episodes that I don't have to be as careful as I thought when putting in the flat colors for their clothes and hair and jewels and trim and, you know, whatever. So I've been getting a little bit faster at that. I felt like her hair was a tad too long, and I was right. When I went back and compared it to earlier panels, her hair is not quite that long. So fix that up. So now I just normally like flat their entire silhouette and then lock the pixels, or, protect the alpha, like whatever term your program uses. And then I don't have to worry so much about coloring outside the lines, and everything goes pretty smoothly that way. And the rocks too, they've been super easy. Just slap on a gradient and I'll maybe add some shadows later. And then when it came to this panel, I realized, uh-oh, I gotta figure out, like, not only the back of her armor, but also this logo. Like, I can't just leave it there saying logo. What am I gonna do? So I tried a couple of shapes, as you can see, getting nowhere, and decided I needed some inspiration. So I looked up some Celtic ones, I looked up some Hindu ones. I was basically just searching for anything with 3 elements, because these are, the 3 types of magic. And then I thought, well, maybe I can base them on shapes. And she can be like something with a square with a negative shape in it, and the rest of them can have something similar. But then I was like, nah, this is looking dumb. And I was trying to use the shapes that their characters are based off of. Like, I feel like Clarice is an upside down raindrop, and that just wasn't working either. So then I went back, looked at runes, I looked at alchemy symbols, I looked at Japanese stuff, and then I hit the jackpot. I found one that really inspired me, and it had kind of like an equal sign. And I thought that was so fitting for Socorro's magic, because hers is about equal exchange, kind of alchemy like that she has to take something and then transfigure it into something else. She can't just create things. And so I whipped up that full logo over on the right, those 2 on the right that I'm about to get rid of. That's when all 3 magics are combined, and then each one of them wears their own piece of that full symbol. So hers is the upside down triangle with the equals bars going right through it. So that's kind of futuristic looking now that I see it again on camera. Maybe not as old-fashioned fantasy as I wanted, but again, when you are under a time crunch, like, too bad. Like, you should have either designed those logos earlier when you had time, or something, because you can't really spend a whole lot of time on it now. So now that's how it has to be for the entire comic. So yeah, learning loads of stuff from doing this webcomic, like how I should have prepared so much more before I decided to start doing it. But that's okay, because I knew this one was going to be a learning experience anyway. Moving on to the 3-shot of Socorro. As she's telling them, I don't even know what she's telling them. That's the scary part of this set of panels too. Is like, I don't exactly know what they're saying. I'm really going just on my gut feeling of if this were a cartoon or if this were a movie, what do I feel like the next camera shot would be? Or what do I feel like the audience needs to see in order to stay connected with the characters or stay connected with the story? And when I had first plotted out this page, I was talking about how Socorro hadn't really done much yet in the comic, and I needed people to understand that she was an equal member of the team and kind of in the leadership role. So I needed her to do some talking. So I think she's going to say something to the effect of, they just need to look around for the tear in the magical shield that they are set out to maintain and fix it up. But while I was coloring her, I realized that the part where the blue ends and her white undershirt begins kind of doesn't make sense, so I'm going to have to figure that out later. Last panel, whoo! I just got to color in all these little spiders that are dizzy and knocked out, but they're still there. That's important for later. They are still there. So that's it for this week. Not as far along as I wanted it to be, but I am determined to catch up in the following weeks. So until next time, just wanted to say a big shout out thank you to my new supporters on Patreon. I started a Patreon page, so if you want to check that out, the link is down below. And I will have more progress for you guys next week.